Hello everyone, my name is Margaret Salisu Oradin, and today we're going to be talking about elder abuse. What is elder abuse? What are the signs to look for? We're also going to give examples of elder abuse and what you can do to prevent elder abuse. Elder abuse, defined by World Health Organization, is a violation of human rights and a significant cause of illness, injury, loss of productivity, isolation, and despair. Each year, hundreds of thousands of people are reported as abused, neglected, and exploited. Many victims are people who are older, frail, vulnerable, and they cannot help themselves. They have to depend on others to meet their most basic needs. Abusers of older adults are both women and men, and may be family members, friends, or trusted others. In 2010, statistics reported over 5 million cases of older persons were abused. Most at risk are females, but 67% of the reported cases in 2010 were females. When we talk about elder abuse, why are we talking about it and why is it significant? In 2010 alone, over 5 million reported cases of abuse. This is about 9.5% of the older population were reported as being abused. At risk are females, over 67%, people in the age group of 77 years and older. More whites are most likely to be reported as abused. This is because about 66%, while blacks 18.7%, and Hispanics 10.4%. Why are older persons most vulnerable? When we're talking about elder abuse, why are they most vulnerable? One, it could be because of social isolation, and some of them having mental impairment, such as dementia or Alzheimer's. This may be factors that may make them to be more vulnerable to abuse. Victims may be totally dependent on the abuser for daily care needs, such as mobility, access to food, to funds, to medication, and in some cases they are dependent on the abuser for shelter, for money, for food. A person may be vulnerable to abuse if they are living with someone who has a mental illness, or they are addicted to drugs or alcohol, and they are mentally incapable of taking care of the elderly person. The mental illness may increase the chances for abuse to occur. Elder abuse victims may experience shame, fear, embarrassment, anxiety, confusion, withdrawal, and depression. Examples of elder abuse are: 1. Inappropriate use of drugs or physical restraint to punish the older persons. When you treat the older person like a child, or you isolate the elderly person from family, from friends, and regular activities. An example could be when you refuse to provide them with life necessities, such as meals, clothing, personal hygiene, care, medication, comfort, and personal safety. Or when you just totally isolate them. Or when you are using illegally, or when you are illegally or improperly using their funds or assets. Or when you withhold attention and affection, or you deny access to grandchildren in order to get the older person to comply with the abuser's wishes. In general, when we're talking about elder abuse, we're talking of a term that is referring to knowingly, intentionally neglecting the care of another person. It can be a neglected act by a caregiver or any other person that causes harm or serious risk of harm to a vulnerable adult. Legislatures in all 50 states have passed some form of elder abuse prevention laws. And when we're talking about elder abuse, what are the types of elder abuse? Talking about physical abuse, when you inflict injury, physical pain on a senior. For example, you are slapping them, or you're threatening them, either physically or chemically. We can also look at the sexual abuse. This is the non-consensual sexual contact of any kind. And most common is neglect. That is the failure to provide food, shelter, healthcare, or protection for a vulnerable adult. This is most common. And now when we're talking about the signs of neglect, you're talking of dehydration, malnutrition, inappropriate or soiled clothing, over or under medicated, when the older person is abandoned or unattended to, when there's lack of medical necessities or assistive device, unclean environment, social isolation. Another form of abuse is financial exploitation. This is when the abuser is illegally taking, misusing, or concealment of funds or asset of a senior for someone else's benefit. And looking at the signs of financial exploitation, money just disappearing, or property, inadequate living environment, frequent recent change title in property or will changes, recent property title changes, excessive home repair bills, and when the elderly person is forced to sign over control of finances. There's no money or limited amount of money for food, for clothing, and other amenities. Now looking at emotional abuse, when there's infliction of pain, mental pain, or anguish or distress on an older person through verbal or non-verbal acts, such as humiliating, intimidating, or threatening the older person. Another form of abuse could be abandonment, when you desert, you leave them alone, and you assume the responsibility of care or custody of that person. Another person could also be involved in self-neglect. This is characterized by failure of a person to perform essential self-care tasks, and that such failure threatens his or her own safety or health. Now, when you're talking about signs of abuse, what are the warning signs? There could be some tell signs to show us that a person is abused. For example, when there is unexplained withdrawal from normal activities, a sudden change in alertness, an unusual depression, or bruises around the person's private parts, breast or genital area, could be an example of a form of sexual assault. Or when there's a sudden change in financial situations of the individual, which could be a sign of financial exploitation. Bed sores, unattended medical needs, poor hygiene, and unusual weight loss in an individual may be indicators of possible neglect. Behaviors such as threats and other use of power and control by spouses are indicators of verbal and emotional abuse. When there's a strained or tense relationship, frequent arguments between the caregiver and the elderly person are also signs of abuse. Significantly, it is important to, when you notice unexplained bruises, lacerations, abrasions on the body or skin of an elderly person, or multiple bruises in various stages of healing, multiple or repeated injuries, low self-esteem, loss of self-determination, withdrawn, passive, fearful, the person is depressed, social isolation. These are all signs that an abusive relationship or abusive situation may be occurring. Prevention can only occur if there's awareness. And in some states, it is a law to not report abuse. If you notice an abuse, you have to report it. You're mandated to report it. In some cases, like I've said, most states, they have agencies that receive complaints of abuse. It is important to know that one has to be alert. Be your neighbor's keeper. If you notice changes in a senior's personality or behavior, you should start to question what is going on. The person that is being abused should not suffer in silence. And it is important that you visit the web page that I'm going to show you in a little while, that you can call or get more information about abusive situation. Now, who should you call if you suspect abuse? If someone is in immediate danger, you need to call 911 or the local police for immediate help. If the person is not in immediate danger, but you suspect that an abuse has occurred or is occurring, please tell someone. To report an elder abuse, contact the Adult Protective Services in the state where the elder resides. You can find the number on the screen. There is the State Resources section of the National Center on Elder Abuse website. The Elder Care Locator is another resource to call. The number is on the screen for your information. If you have been the victim of abuse, exploitation, or neglect, you are not alone. Many people care and they can help. Please tell your doctor, your friend, family member, or call the Elder Care Locator for help, immediate help. And you can reach, for emphasis again, you can reach the Elder Care Locator at the phone number that is on the screen. The Elder Care Locator office is open Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. If you suspect nursing home abuse, call your long-term care ombudsman. Now we're talking about what should you expect when you call someone for help. When making the call, be ready to give the elder's name, the address, the contact information, and details about why you are concerned. You may be asked a series of questions to gain more insight into the nature of the situation. For example, are there any known medical problems, including confusions and memory loss? What kinds of family or social support are there? Have you seen or heard incidents of yelling, hitting, or other abusive behavior? You might be asked for your name, for your address, your telephone number, and other important information that the state would take the report. But most states will take the report even if you do not identify yourself, so you can report anonymously. What happened after you report suspicion? The Adult Protective Agency will screen for potential seriousness, and it keeps the information it receives confidential. If the agency decides the situation possibly violates state elder abuse law, it assigns a caseworker to conduct an investigation. In case of an emergency, usually within 24 hours. If the victim needs crisis intervention, services are available. If elder abuse is not substantiated, most APS, that is the Adult Protective Services, will work as necessary with other community agencies to obtain any social and health services that the older person needs. The Adult Protective Agencies provide social services to ensure the safety and well-being of elders and adults with disabilities who are in danger of being mistreated or neglected, or they are unable to care for themselves or protect themselves from harm and have no one to assist them. Interventions provided by the Adult Protective Service may include, but they are not limited to, receiving reports of adult abuse, exploitation, or neglect, investigating these reports. They may also do case planning, monitoring, and evaluation. They also provide assistance, arranging for medical, social, economic, legal, housing, law enforcement, or other protective, emergency, or supportive services. it is important to remember that the older person has the right to refuse services offered by the Adult Protective Service. The APS agency provides services only if the senior agrees or has been declared incapacitated by the court or a guardian has been appointed. The Adult Protective Agency only takes such action as a last resort. Now, who responds to elder abuse or elder reports of abuse, neglect, or exploitation? Although Adult Protective Services is usually the first responder to report of abuse, neglect, or exploitation, many other agencies and not-profit organizations work actively to protect vulnerable elders. Adult Protective Services is the principal public agency responsible both for investigating and reported cases of elder and vulnerable adult abuse and for providing victims with treatment and protective services. Usually, the Adult Protective Service Unit, Area Service or Area Agency on Aging or County Department of Social Service is designated as the agency to receive and investigate allegations of elder abuse and neglect. If the investigator finds abuse or neglect, they arrange for services to help protect the victim. Law enforcement, police, the sheriffs, and prosecuting attorneys may investigate and prosecute abuse, particularly in cases involving sexual abuse or assault. In states where laws make elder abuse a crime, there may be a requirement to report suspected abuse to law enforcement agency. Most long-term care ombudsmen, they have it in each state, we investigate and resolve nursing home complaints, and in some areas complaints about board and care facilities and professional home care providers such as nursing home, assisted living, or home care agency. If you are concerned about abuses, check the state's long-term care ombudsman program in your area. I hope this information has been most helpful to you. We shall continue. Thank you for your time.